Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Arthur Robotnik. Welcome back to my channel. Today, let's go cover a little thing known as the Neo Geo. An old arcade cabinet that essentially you could shove like 4 games. And we're going to play a little fairly obscure fighting game called World Heroes. Let's get this shit over with, I guess. Because I don't really have too much to say on it other than it's one of the many games that competed with Street Fighter. You came at a good time. Use the time machine to go all over the world where the strong people are. I'm praying for a healthy battle. That dude is called Doc Brown. There is no relation to another Doc Brown. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is like a little how to play thing. Basically, you use A to punch, B to kick, or C to throw, which I'm using a PS3 controller for my emulator. And it's just basically that. Almost every Neo Geo game did feature this because most games, well, played kind of differently. Like Fatal Fury generally played differently. Art of Fighting played differently. It was kind of common for most fighting games to, well, have a different method of play. And we got our characters: Hanzo, Fuuma, Dragon, John, J-Corn, Muscle Power, Brocken, and Rasputin. The gimmick here is that almost every fighter is based on a historical figure, or celebrity, or in the case of Brocken, an anime character, essentially. In this case, Von Stoihim. So let's get this game over with. We've got normal mode or deathmatch, and we're going to be doing normal mode. And let's fight our first opponent. We're going to Germany to fight Brocken. And I'm playing as Fuuma Kotaro. You might assume he's a Bison ripoff, but in reality he plays more like Dalsim. With an emphasis on zoning with his normals. And my guy basically is the Ken of the game, to Hanzo's Ryu. That wasn't too bad. That's it, I'm just gonna fill up the credits thing because why the hell not? It's a fun little thing to do with these arcade emulators. But yeah, one little thing that's a bit more notable is that this game you can kind of tell is, well, riding off the coattails of the wildly successful Street Fighter 2, because every game wanted to be that. Even Mortal Kombat kind of wanted a piece of that pie, though. Mortal Kombat had its own fighting system and its own gimmicks to separate itself from Street Fighter, you know, the blood and gore. Let's see, our next opponent is Julius Karn. He's based off of Genghis Khan. And he's essentially the Blanca of the game. He's basically this big, bulky dude that's designed to kind of rush in. So he's kind of like the Blanca or E Honda, where he's designed to kind of rush on in and fight. And he's kind of, let's be honest, kind of a bit of a bland character, if anything. He barely has any backstory other than being, well, Genghis Khan, essentially, just named Julius Karn. I mean, this is kind of one thing that this game is notable of not really having. It's just generally a large backstory, but rather just a bit more, in general, just endings for each character, which this game's endings are kind of fairly weak, as you'll kind of see later on. And this was kind of like, and I'd like to kind of point that out, I feel like would be kind of a rip-off, because let's be honest, like my dad in particular actually, like, talked about this game a lot, nostalgically. And in general, he actually, like, said to me that he beat this game with everybody in the arcade, which, I mean, let's be fair, it isn't really too much money, really, because this game is actually not too hard. It's not Mortal Kombat 2 difficulty, that's for damn sure. Let's see, we almost got it. Come on. Well, he won. Oh, well. Shit happens, you know. It's like, J-Corn's proportions are ridiculously off. Like, that is not even anatomically possible. I mean, I know this is a cartoony, comic book-like game. But come on, that's admittedly a bit ridiculous. Though then again, that's kind of the concept of World Heroes later on, as you'd see in the later entries, where they get a lot more comedic. Which I don't think is actually too much of a change for the bad, honestly, because, hey, at least it gives its own identity, and once the series in general progressed to, like, World Heroes 2, at least they got a lot better gameplay-wise, where this game isn't bad, but just average, if anything. It's just a competitor to Street Fighter. Whereas World Heroes 2 added more uniqueness, I felt, with more comedic characters, and in general, the combo system was a lot more refined in that one. And then there are games like World Heroes Perfect, which completely revamped the gameplay engine. It's actually really fun. And an extremely underrated fighting game, if you ask me. And we got our bonus game. This is basically the car minigame from, well, Street Fighter 2, just redone. And it's basically you're trying to just simply chill the statue out. That wasn't too hard. And the music's kind of fine in this game, too. It's not Street Fighter 2 iconic, where every character you're going to think about. Well, there are some things that are okay. Like, I like Brocken's theme. That's pretty good. I think the bonus stage seems kind of memorable, but other than that, I just simply have a hard time remembering most of the tracks. Because honestly, most of it is kind of forgettable. Let's see, Dragon. I would argue he's kind of one of the harder characters to battle. And also, you can obviously tell he's based on Bruce Lee. He's also, I'd like to point out, the first true Bruce Lee clone in any fighting game. Where he actually predates characters like Liu Kang and Fei Long, which, despite this game kind of ripping off a lot of Street Fighter, is kind of interesting that he predates Fei Long. However, Fei Long, I would argue, is a much more memorable Bruce Lee clone, whereas Dragon's just basically Bruce Lee. Just all but a name, which, I mean, let's be honest, most Bruce Lee clones are. With the exception of other characters like Law or Kenshiro, where Kenshiro just simply was designed with the strength of Bruce Lee in mind, but Kenshiro is his own entire character, let's be honest. Where I don't see Dragon making anybody's heads explode, and then there's just martial law from Tekken, where they were Liu Kang, where they at least have some inspiration from Bruce Lee, whereas this guy's just a blatant ripoff of Lee. But then again, originality is not the series' strongest suit, as we'll soon realize. I mean, keep in mind, we saw a knockoff of Von Stroheim, and I mean, I don't mind the little historical figures here and there. I mean, that's kind of a cool little concept, and actually adds a lot of the charm to the series, I feel. But then there's, like, the ones that are, like, again, Brocken, who's basically Von Stroheim alongside Brocken Jr. Let's see. And he has the gameplay elements of Dhalsim. There's Julius Khan, who is basically Genghis Khan with basically E Honda or Blanca's, like, charge attack moveset, essentially, where they, like, rush towards the opponent. And there's also Hanzo and Fuuma, who are basically Ryu and Ken, even completely with the movesets, just as Hanzo Hattori and Fuuma Kotaro. Let's see, I got this. Hola! Yeah, that's another thing you gotta get used to if you're gonna play as Fuuma, is you're gonna hear Aura a lot. How I found out about the series, also besides from my dad, is I actually found an arcade cabinet of this when I was in New Jersey, and I played it for a little bit, and I actually beat the game with Fuuma. It was okay on an arcade cabinet. It was kind of cool to play a Neo Geo, because those things are like really cool, because you can like stuff like 4 games in one arcade cabinet if you didn't know about the Neo Geo. And usually you'd find some really good ones at any retro arcade too, where you'll find the really good games like Samurai Showdown. Well, that game's awesome. I love me some Samurai Showdown. Or a King of Fighters style, which those are fun games in my opinion. I think games like 14 and 98 are really good, definitely. I definitely think arguably King of Fighters 14 is better than Street Fighter 5. And I lost that round. I nearly won, but I got stunned. But hey, you know, shit happens. We'll win. World Heroes for the next Evo. Come on, we gotta have this game for Evo, man. Like, this would be the definitive... Well, actually, World Heroes Perfect would be admittedly kind of cool to see as a side event, because that game's actually really fun as hell. It's basically like Street Fighter 2 meets some elements of Guilty Gear. It's actually really badass, in my opinion. compared to this game, where, I mean, it's not bad, but it's just more functional. It's like, you could play it, but even then, there's just a lot better fighting games out now, like Guilty Gear X2, there's World Heroes Perfect, or even there's better fighting games in the 90s you could play, like, well, World Heroes 2 at least, or, hell, other games like Samurai Showdown, Street Fighter. I mean, I know that they came out about a year later, but this game's got, like, a bit obsolete. I mean, it's not bad. I don't hate this game. It's just functional. That's what I call it. It's like I can play it and have an okay time, but honestly, I can just play better games. But I'm just playing this game for you guys, because I want to just kind of show a little series off, I guess. Then to kind of spice things up, because, hey, Jack 3 is still going on, and it will be completed. I promise you that. Though, Sonic Heroes will not be the next Let's Play, because I had to give that back to a friend. But I am considering having other options too. Like, one game I'm actually considering doing next for my next Let's Play would be Shovel Knight, because that game is awesome, let's be honest. I fucking love that game so much. Though I'm also open to other games too. You guys want me to do Paper Mario for the N64? I'd be glad to do that. Or hell, Super Mario 64, that'd be another good one too. Or I could do the Crash Bandicoot remaster, since I actually nabbed those recently. You guys know I love the first game a lot, and hey, I could do the remastered versions of the sequels. Let's see, we beat Dragon. So yeah, Dragon, I would argue, out of all the AI opponents, is the one that's just the biggest one to fight. As, like, the biggest pain to fight compared to everyone else. Let's see, now we gotta go to France to fight Jean, who's, obviously based on Joan of Arc. Though here, she's cocky, arrogant, and works as a circus performer, apparently, going by this stage. And there's also the fact that her story is basically a case of all Amazons want Hercules, where she's trying to find the perfect man, essentially someone that is stronger than her. Why she's entering a tournament based on fighting other than to prove she's the strongest in history. If she wants to find someone stronger than her, I don't know. In fact, it kind of feels like a paradox to me, but hey, someone can probably prove me wrong there. But all her endings just basically is her lamenting of how she can't find a lover. Let's see, and she's also basically one of the first characters in any fighting game besides Vega to... Actually, nah, I'm not going to say that, because actually then there's the case of Euro Kung Fu, where almost all your AI opponents wielded a weapon of some kind. But she actually has the first real whip sword in any fighting game, predating Ivy's by about at least 6 years, which is kind of cool. And most people would assume she's a ripoff of Charlotte from Samurai Showdown, but she didn't come out till 1993. In, Samurai Showdown. Yeah, I'm an idiot there. So, believe it or not, though Charlotte is admittedly a much cooler character, both in design and character personality, and moveset especially, where Charlotte has a cool charisma and moveset. Where Jan isn't bad, she's a memorable character, but, oh, in the case of World Heroes, that's not saying much, let's be honest. Because some of these characters are really fucking forgettable, let's be honest. Oh, now we're fighting Rasputin. He's based on, well, the Mad Monk Rasputin, the guy legendary for many myths about him being nearly impossible to kill, when in reality his autopsy just simply showed he died of 2 gunshot wounds. Over this one, they kind of took him in a debatably offensive stereotype where they made him outright camp gay in this. They made him more, where they explicitly say he's like the head of a pansexual love cult. And, I mean, it's really weirdly taken. I don't really know how to react to this, honestly. Because, I mean, it's just, like... I don't know, like, the Fighters generation called this guy basically the gayest fighting game character ever, which it has, like, nothing wrong with that disclaimer. They said, like, Rasputin's, like, one of those characters that makes gay people look bad. I mean, I'm not gonna really say anything further. But it's like, he's kind of, I would argue he's a bit offensively dumb, but I'm not trying to be like a social justice warrior. It's just more like, there is no way you could get away with this nowadays kind of element to it. Gotta remember, this was 1992. That and he has like weird win quotes in like World Heroes 2, which are admittedly very cheesy, which the World Heroes games have very fucking horrible win quotes. Let's get that out of the way. Where he has one where he says, "Don't make me hungry or I'm gonna hug you to death." I mean, honestly, I think as far as gay fighting game characters, Rasputin is not the way to go. If you want to do a gay fighting game character done right, there's Venom and Guilty Gear. Venom is cool, and they don't really make too big a deal out of his gayness. Whereas here, it's like they're trying to do this gayness for humor and kind of succeeding in similar ways to the Nutcheck. And I lost via timeout. Yeah, you see, that's kind of like a little... Yeah, it was like... He a girly man. He's like this weird combination of Rasputin meets Jimmy from Ed, Edd n Eddy. Sarah! The only case that Jimmy was like, he was more kept straight, arguably, or so. I don't know. I'm not going to go on to too much of a debate because I feel like, honestly, this is going to turn into a flame war. I mean, I do apologize if I potentially offended anybody in advance because, honestly, I feel like this is a subject that I should not try to tackle, whether or not this is offensive or not. I feel like because this is just gonna like probably cause some problems amongst like the anti-social justice warriors. I feel like I shouldn't try to tackle social justice in a fighting game playthrough of a game that's not you're not supposed to really take seriously. Let's see. Now I want via timeout because the timer of this game's not very accurate. I barely won. And here's my fan of coolness, because I'm a ninja. And you're Rasputin the Mad Monk. Let's see, you gotta go to America and fight Muscle Power, who's based on none other than the Hulkster. The fighter generation put it the best. He looks like one of those crappy wrestling toys that you'd find in, like, grocery store bargain bins. And he's wearing a flag on his... He's a true American because he's wearing a flag on himself. In America! And he's obviously also the Zangief of the game, even having some similar attack animations. How they have not gotten sued over this game, I do not know, but because like that Capcom did sue over one game called Fighter's History, which is one of those knockoffs remembered primarily because it actually triggered legal action. Let's be honest, sir, this game is at least playable. I haven't played Fighter's History, but I've heard mixed things on it, notably, I feel. Then there's the fact that that it really wanted to try to be Street Fighter. Let's see, now the AI is kind of starting to get to the point where it's like, it's able to really predict, which is kind of common in all these early fighting games, because, hey, this was back in the day when arcades, again, reigned supreme, so arcade owners had to make their money somehow. So what they would do is generally, like, a lot of these developers would generally make these games a little bit harder as you progress, or in some cases, like Mortal Kombat 2, most infamously, would actually crank up the AI immediately, make the game already abnormally difficult and have the AI be psychic and read every input. Effectively to try to make everything hard, and now let's get this through. Over here, the game, I would argue, actually some fair difficulty for the most part, and in general, I don't feel like any parts were outright overly bullshit. So, I mean, again, this is one of those very few arcade games I've actually beaten an actual arcade. Another one would be Street Fighter 3 3rd Generation, believe it or not. And I was able to actually make Gil my bitch of that one, but it helps that in that incarnation, Gil actually didn't have... All he had was just merely Resurrection. He didn't have Seraphic Wing or Meteor Strike like he does in 3rd Strike, which... No, Meteor Strike's the name of Doomfist's ultimate Overwatch, which... He's pretty fun, if you ask me, but anyway, like, he doesn't have the Meteor Shower, which that's a... Though that's nothing compared to Seraphic Wing, and I think his AI was a bit different in 3rd Strike. I could be wrong. Then it's a bit different than Samurai Showdown, where Samurai Showdown, I mean, yeah, it's the boss in that one, but considering that it's an SNK game, the boss is total bullshit, which I wouldn't really say he's as hard as Geese Howard, who actually fought for the first time today, and oh boy, Geese is as hard as I say he is. Though in that case, I'll probably showcase that when I play Fatal Fury, actually, which I'll probably cover that next. Let's see, we got our bonus game. Back to it being showing that still derivative of Street Fighter. This is basically the barrel smashing minigame. I'm not very good at it, obviously, because my... That's because also this game's controls are admittedly a little sluggish. They're not outright bad. I think they're honestly better than, say, Fatal Fury's controls. Or that game's controls are kind of a little bit stiff. Because, I mean, I've had several times where I could swear I threw out a ground wave and I didn't do it. Because, I mean... And no, this isn't me sounding like Darkside Phil, because I played King of Fighters a lot as Terry Bogard. If I throw out a ground wave, I know I throw out a fucking ground wave, but whatever. Though that game's difficulty isn't too bad, I felt, until you get to, say, fucking Geese. But Geese is the boss and the originator of the concept of SNK boss syndrome. Now we're fighting Hanzo, though. He's based on Hanzo Hattori, and whenever people ask me... And whenever I talk to people about this, I say, oh, I made Hanzo. And they're like, oh, and what, Overwatch? I'm like, no, and World Heroes. Nah, not really, because, I mean, the only time I've ever talked about World Heroes with any fighting game players was when I went to the Tekken 7 midnight release. And one of the guys just said, and I brought up World Heroes Park, and they're like, oh, man, I remember that at the arcades. And it was just kind of like a anyone remember Pog-style conversation. Because most people remember it for this game, which is, admittedly, just, you know, just Street Fighter 2, just not Street Fighter 2, and not as popular, in fact. It's the Street Fighter 2 knockoff, if anything, and the one that I think a lot of people will probably bring up when it comes to Street Fighter 2 wannabes. Because, let's be honest, this is really trying to be Street Fighter 2. And doesn't succeed. I'd argue for the most part, no, because honestly, Street Fighter 2 is a much better game and has much better characters, the music's better, the graphics in Street Fighter 2 I think were arguably better. I'm not going to say they definitively are, because for starters, this is the Neo Geo we're talking about, which does have much better capabilities, let's be really honest with that. I mean, for really good proof of that, look at games like Garo, Mark of the Wolves, which look absolutely fantastic on the Neo Geo. And then there's cases like Samurai Showdown, where that game looks absolutely amazing, and it featured revolutionary graphics for the time, such as sprite scaling for fighting games, which is, I think it was like the first fighting game besides Art of Fighting to actually do that. Whereas here, this is a game that you can really tell blatantly is trying to be Street Fighter 2. I mean, even got like the Ryu and Ken knockoffs fully done here. Which, I mean, let's be honest, Art of Fighting had Ryo Sakazaki and Robert Garcia, but at least they had their own attributes, and at least they had the excuse of being basically a case of Mickey and Oswald, because the guy who made Street Fighter left Capcom, and when he worked for SNK, he wanted to make new fighting games, but he couldn't use Ryu and Ken anymore, so Ryo and Robert were the way to go. Then, honestly, I'm glad we have Ryo, because without him, we wouldn't have the lovable glory that is Dan Hibiki. And honestly, I would not have it any other way. I hope you're ready for a beating. But it's like, I'm surprised Capcom never really took any pot shots at this series, though. Because, I mean, let's be really honest, this game is basically just such a blatant knockoff of Street Fighter 2 that I don't feel like it was as notable, partly because at least this one tried having a unique gimmick, like this case, the historical heroes, and there's the deathmatch mode, which actually basically allows you to fight people and kind of have like in a booby-trapped arena, kinda. Think of a very watered-down version of the interactive battlefields in Injustice, essentially. That's the only way I can put it. But I mean, yeah, this game, I would argue Street Fighter 2 is definitely the better game you could be playing at the time, because you had much better characters, much better gameplay, much better balance, I would argue. I have not played this game two-player. I played World Heroes 2 two-player, and perfect two-player. Perfect, I think, actually is a fairly decent balance, though I haven't really played it enough to know that. Though, it's just fun to play in that case, and World Heroes 2 is that element of fun, whereas this, it's hard to say. I haven't really played this with a friend before, honestly. And I'm probably doubting my dad ever played this with anybody back in the arcades. Because, I mean, this looks like that kind of game that you'd be laughed at playing in an arcade. Honestly. Because, I mean, let's be honest, this game, again, it's basically just a knockoff of Street Fighter 2, but you gotta remember, back on the Neo Geo, this is arguably the best you could get at the time, you know, like all the SNK fighters, because, again, there was no King of Fighters or Samurai Shodown. At the time, you had Fatal Fury 1, which wasn't even really a competitive fighting game outside of the single-player mode, because your two-player mode was just basically co-op, and you were fighting a set of AI opponents up to Geese Howard. Let's see. You have done well. You're suitably to be the strongest in history. Without further ado, let's begin the award ceremony. What? Ha ha ha, my name is Gigas, the strongest in the universe. If you don't want the earth to be smashed, you will fight me. So this is our final boss, Gigas. He's a morph, and he's based on the T-1000 from Terminator 2 Judgment Day. He's the first fighting game character to essentially morph into other characters and copy their fighting styles, even predating characters like Shang Tsung. Believe it or not. And I'd say as far as fighting game bosses go, he's not actually too hard, honestly. The only real SNK boss-ish quality he has is when he's unmorphed, he doesn't flinch, but other than that, as long as you know what you're doing, you can actually beat this guy with no problem. He's not too hard, and I like his theme. His theme's pretty cool, honestly. Let's see, we're gonna beat this guy with no problem. And that wasn't too bad, see? I like it when you actually knock him out, he explodes. And we're gonna get our ending now. Ooh! No! 1,000 pardons for being late. Where have you been? I guess I overslept. So, that's my ending. I'm late for my day job. High quality narrative. Though there's definitely worse endings in this game. There's Brockens where all his is literally him saying, I didn't break a sweat. So yeah, now I've immortalized myself as ass. So, what did I think of World Heroes? Functional. That's what I'm going to call it. Just functional. It's not a bad game, but honestly, for the time, there were much better games you could be playing. Like, you had, I mean, I would say out of the SNK lineup, yeah, for like Neo Geo, you'd have, I mean, there were games like Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, which, they're not technically bad games, but I mean, if you wanted that Street Fighter 2 experience, I would say this is the closest you were going to really get. But SNK, I didn't feel like really, I mean, granted, this isn't an SNK game, this is done by ADK, actually. Where with ADK, this was an ADK developed game with, which, I mean, yeah, SNK helped out with, but it wasn't really a full-on SNK production. But, what was I gonna say again? Oh, yeah. Like, effectively, this wasn't before, like, SNK could truly surpass Capcom, or at least have games that could outright compete equally, like, until set game. I feel like the game that kind of shows that would be Samurai Shodown, where that game is really good. The gameplay is really deep. There's a very fun mechanics to it. And then there was other games like King of Fighters 94, which kind of showed that they could really compete with the big boys. And they further expanded that into games like King of Fighters 98, and there were other games that were also in the Neo Geo that were a lot better, like World Heroes Perfect, Waku Waku 7. So there's just a lot of better Neo Geo games you can play than this, honestly. Anyway, that's World Heroes for you. I'll see you guys next time.